My name is Ian Hazzikostas, and I am the lead encounter designer on World of Warcraft. So, I mean, the Pandaren are a race that goes back a very long time in Warcraft lore and history, going all the way back to the RTS Warcraft 3. The expansion had a neutral hero, Pandaren Brewmaster. And so, it's one of the races, one of the beloved characters that has always been part of the world, and we just haven't had a chance to share that in the MMO yet. We considered for a time actually having the Pandaren as a race in Burning Crusade. So it might have actually been Pandaren and Blood Elf back then, but we decided that really, the Draenei and tying it to Outland was more fitting for what we wanted to tell and the story we wanted to tell at that point in time. Plus, making the Pandaren actually, which had been a neutral faction historically, forcing them into one side or the other didn't feel right. So we put that idea aside and decided that we wanted to come back to it when the time was right. And for Mists of Pandaria, we feel that now the time is right. Nostalgia has a way of focusing on the happy moments, and I think everyone, people who raided back then have fond memories of, fighting Ragnaros, fighting Nefarian, what it felt like to down those bosses, but they don't necessarily remember, the experience of, handling the management of those 40-player raids, of handling loot in those systems, of managing a roster of 50-plus people and hoping that you'd have enough online to field your raid. In many cases, people didn't even really form the social bonds that they have made now that are enduring until we went down to 25-player. I mean, I've been raiding myself throughout the entirety of WoW, and when you have a group of that size, it's impossible to really fully know everyone, to know their personalities. And, we feel that 25 and then 10 are really raid sizes that work better for our community and that deliver a mix of, the social experience, while also being large enough scale that you really get that epic multiplayer feeling when you're working with a large group of people to take on a huge boss. The challenge mode it's for prestige. You don't get player power upgrades from beating the dungeon in challenge mode. What you get is you can earn titles, you can earn mounts, and at the high end you can earn transmogrifiable armor that looks different and frankly looks pretty much cooler than any other armor out there. There are special animations built into each class's custom armor set that you can use to show off. And so you really, when people see you in this armor set, they'll know that you were incredibly skillful as a player, because in challenge modes, it's not just harder, it's not just additional mechanics, but we also scale your gear down to a fixed level. So if you take raid gear into the dungeon, we scale it down to be equal to dungeon gear. So you can't outgear the difficulty, you have to only improve your skill. The monk, will bring something to any raid that they fill, and it's really, there are 11 classes to choose among now when you're filling out your roster. Ultimately, it means that in a 10-player raid, you can't have one of every class, so every raid's going to have some slight, different missing hole or weakness. I think we feel that each class brings a unique skill set and set of capabilities to the raid, and that's just sort of what you're putting together when you form your fighting force as an entire raid. We've had the last new content that we released to players was at the end of 2011, the Dragon Soul Raid and patch 4.3, and it's been a number of months now since then. So what we hear from many of our players is, okay, Cataclysm was awesome, Dragon Soul was awesome, but, I've killed everything. I've killed Deathwing, I've gotten the items I want to get, and I'm taking a break until Mists. But at the same time, they're excited for Mists and the content that there is to offer. And we look forward to seeing them come back. And part of our commitment in really making the new expansion has been to offer really more endgame content than ever before, both in terms of broader and deeper. So for raiders, for example, we have 18 raid bosses in the Mists of Pandaria patch 5.0. 2 of those are outdoor world bosses, 16 are in the zones though. And that's more than Cataclysm, certainly. Similarly, we have over 200 new daily quests at max level, 9 max level dungeons, 7 outdoor zones to explore, but also all new modes of gameplay, like the challenge modes that you mentioned earlier, but also scenarios, which are 15 to 20-minute, more bite-sized chunks of gameplay for people with either their friends or random people that they queue up with, so they can experience our story with a lower time commitment, but also more free-form gameplay that isn't necessarily tied to tank healer DPS gameplay, but You can use crowd control, you can fear things off you to stay alive. It'll have a good different feel to it. And then, of course, the pet battle system and the collection aspect of that, and exploring the world and completing your collection of pets, leveling them up, teaching them new abilities, and dueling your friends to see who has the better team of pets. So all of this type of gameplay, we feel confident that players are going to return for it, but they'll also be, they'll remain engaged and enjoy all the different variety that we have to offer for a long time to come.
What is worth fighting for?